Hey, good morning. This is Jake, Habitat Solutions 360. I often get contacted by people that have just recently purchased the property and they've got a number of questions. Should I add this? Where do I start? How do I handle my timber stand? What do I do with my open tillable? So I put this following video together to try and answer some of the questions and give you some real-time examples of what I've done here on my own farm and client properties that will help you achieve your goals and have the best hunting property that you've dreamed of. Good luck and good habitat.
So you've bought a property. It has all kinds of potential, and you're starting with a blank slate. There are some important decisions to be made right now that will have everlasting effects on your success as a land manager and as a hunter that I'd like to discuss. This layout can represent any typical property from 25 to 40 acres or more. I've drawn in a few features like tillable acreage along the road frontage. The majority of the property consists of a mature closed canopy hardwoods with a small wetland swamp located in the east central portion with a small creek that drains to the north and a spruce thicket in the northwest corner on the higher ground. Okay, so what do I consider first? Let's concentrate on that open tillable field along the road. In my opinion, after visiting hundreds of landowner properties and dozens of states, let's start with a basic feature that is oftentimes just overlooked or not given that much thought or consideration, and that's access. This is one of your most important decisions you're going to make concerning this property, so consider all of your options. Second, parking. I know, what does this have to do with your habitat? Not much, but it will have everlasting effects on your hunting success for years to come. In my opinion, it makes much more sense to locate your parking in the southeast corner at the property periphery next to the road and in the southwest corner. Then, depending on the conditions and winds, you could access up this way into stands, along the edge of the woods to future food plots, and same thing over here. With the correct winds, you can move out to stands along this edge between the swamp pinch point or right down the road and into other little honey hole locations. Now, your second consideration would be roadside screening. Your success and enjoyment relies greatly on how and where your entry points originate from. But don't discount visual screening from the main road on the property's south border. Not only does it reduce future poaching behaviors, but it also allows the wildlife that use the open field habitats to feel much more comfortable. So now we can look at this layout, and you can see where I pointed out putting the visual roadside screening right along the road and around the parking area to block anything that goes on there, and your access going in to the hardwoods or going along the edge of the woods heading for some of these future food plots. Now, I also suggest putting switchgrass in the majority of this field, but be sure to leave about a 15 to 20 foot access lane for your side-by-sides, your equipment, your tractor, and just being able to get deer in and out of the property and allow you to access the property without disturbing a lot of things at different times of the year. So you can see just by putting screening here that anyone along the road, any of your future poaching neighbors that you're not aware of, won't be able to see deer using some of these food plots. Plus, this switchgrass is going to get 6 to 7 feet tall once it matures, and this is a fairly flat area right here. If it was higher ground with more rolls to it, then you might consider some spruce trees or some taller miscanthus grass to use as visual screening. Well, this small property is really starting to shape up. So now we should focus on annual and perennial food sources in the deeper inside corners and potentially look at a larger destination food plot out in the center core. Screen and compartmentalize with annual hybrid sorghum at first, but when you see what's working, then you can use giant miscanthus grass or Norway spruce for longer-term solutions. The roadside visual screening will allow you to grow more food and hide your local deer and wildlife that use it from some of the bad actors that happen to live in the community. This will all work together to build your success and confidence while creating great habitat as well. And if you notice, I put screening along the angled corner food plot to compartmentalize and create a coliseum effect for that also. So that pretty much takes care of the tillable out in front along the road. But now I'm going to discuss the timber stand improvement considerations. Low cut screening for visual and sightline blocking on the inside wood edges. Be sure to leave strategic openings where you would prefer the deer to enter the open fields towards the food plots and switchgrass. Also create a 2 to 3 acre hinge cut using conventional notch and fall for a bedding and security area with lots of woody browse and travel corridors that angle through the hinge cut from the northwest corner to its southwest corner, directing deer to the food plots as well. Also leave an aisle about 10 to 20 yards wide that parallels the spruce thicket. And that'll be an area that you won't do any kind of cutting in. You'll just leave it basically as that park effect woods. Hinge cut and conventional fall more trees in 3 more locations as I show on the layout. 1 in the northeast corner and 2 strategically placed to create pinch point opportunities and close encounters with rut period bucks. Hang stand setups where the stars are shown both for early season, easy entry edge stands, and those rut period stands for the crucial cruising and searching periods. So now that all the heavy work has been done, it's time to enter the woodlot and do the detail work. You'll notice here where I show these winding little green paths, and these will be areas in the hinge cutting and notch and fall TSI areas where you will clear out the trails, make it so deer can move, and not only in this direction, you're going to put spurs off this way and spurs off in another direction. You basically want the deer to be able to go forward, backward, right, and left and not feel trapped in many of these locations. I just don't show every bit of that. I show a little more over here with a nice little clearing, and deer can go in and out here and go through this travel corridor. The red S's, those indicate licking branches. They can be branches that you pull down, grapevines that you hang or attach to other trees. Great locations to get bucks and does to communicate. And you can see I've got some stands set up to observe the deer activity. It'll be around the edges, along the corridor. You're going to do the same thing in this little pinch point here between the wetland and where the deer cross the creek. So again, mount some scrapes, put some detail work into the habitat with a walk behind brush hog and a chainsaw, or at least chainsaw work. Same thing here in this larger hinge cut TSI area, a couple of clearings where doe family groups can spend time, network trails that they can move through and bucks can cruise and look for does. So here's a better layout with a little more descriptive information and what I mean when you go into those timber stand improvement areas where you've done a combination of hinge cutting and notch and fall, and now you've got a mess, and it's your job to create a maze network. So all these little trail systems that wind through here are where you go around and avoid the tops and cut chunks out of the big trunks of the trees that cross over, and take advantage of the natural clearings where there aren't a lot of tree tops to create clearings for doe bedding areas. And basically this can be as large as 3 to 5 acres with 3, 4, 5 different clearings. You'll see I show putting some scrape limbs in here, and where I show this S, here's one of these little clearings with a grapevine and a buck working it. Stand location, save a few of your trees, multiple oaks or cherries or whatever you've got growing that would be a good tree to put stands in. Save some of those, don't cut everything. And then put your stands in there so regardless of the wind and weather conditions, you can get in here during the rut and hunt. Anywhere you see on this layout purple like flower design, that represents a stand. And you can see what the clearings look like and what these little winding trails represent. And I go through there with a chainsaw first and then clear them, and then use a walk behind brush hog, use some herbicide, kill the vegetation, and overseed it with crimson clover or chicory and clover just before rain to have something nice and green in these bedding areas. That works awesome. And then this is a long hinge cut over here with a couple of trail systems so deer can be pinched in between the wetland and that thick cover, but they've also got gateways that you provide to get in and get out. So I've got hinging, low level hinging, probably like knee high to waist high for screening all along this edge, down along the road here, all these different locations, so that when you are parked and accessing, maybe you'll walk right along the edge and pop into a stand here, or you'll park and walk right into this stand, or come down the road, go along your green strip here, pop into this stand. Again, I've got the licking branch vines and limbs on the edges of the food plots for early season hunting, and over in this one as well. And these areas that are shown in white, this would be just letting, you could do two things. You could plant all of it in switchgrass, or you could just let successional growth come up for some diversity and some broadleaves and things like that. But the bulk of your switchgrass here is providing screening and a really good edge cover for the deer activity that is going to take place in this area. Now obviously, your property will be different than this example that I showed here in this video. But I hope you can see or envision these concepts and how easily you can adapt many of these habitat improvements into your new property. Here's wishing you years of enjoyment and habitat improvements and fulfilling your hunting dreams. Be sure to click like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my video updates.